back to the channel, guys. So in my last video, I set up a Daphnia jar to produce live food for the guppies and the other fish in my community tank. And today I wanted to give you guys an update on how that's going. I have learned a little bit since I first set it up, and I've changed my mind on a couple of things. So this tank does look a little bit different, and I'll show you the changes that I made. Thank you to those of you who commented and left advice on the last video. Your advice was actually very helpful, and I followed it. It guided me as I set this jar up, and I think it probably helped me to have a more successful project. So thank you guys. I am happy to say that the Daphnia are doing really well, and I was able to start feeding the guppies from the Daphnia jar for the first time. I'll show you that footage later on in this video. The first change that I made was the concept of it being a self-sustaining jar. It just isn't going to be that anymore. I'm gonna feed the Daphnia directly. I'm gonna do water changes on the jar. I want to make sure I get as much Daphnia as possible out of this jar, and to do that, there's really just kind of no way around getting involved in it. More on that later. After reading this comment from SJC Systems, I realized that I might have been overdoing it with the heater. It might not be as necessary as I thought. So after doing a little bit of research, I decided to remove it. I think the jar will be fine, but I'm gonna continue to monitor it, and if need be, I can always put it back. I also decided to add a bubbler. One common way that Daphnia cultures can die off is that they actually run out of oxygen in their water. Now, I do have plants in this jar. The plants will produce some oxygen during photosynthesis and put it into the jar.
Chlorophyll? More like borophyll.
I do have a lot of plants in here, so hopefully I'm actually getting a good amount of that. But I want to make sure that, that there is plenty of oxygen for the Daphnia, especially as their numbers are increasing. The bubbler is good for this ecosystem jar in two ways. When the bubbles it produces break at the surface of the jar, it allows for an exchange between the air at the top of the jar and the water in the jar, and that brings more oxygen into the water. The other way it helps is it circulates the water in the jar. The bubbles floating to the top of the tank pulls the water along with it. This creates a little bit of water flow that helps keep the water from becoming stagnant. I feed the Daphnia using a mixture of yeast and spirulina powder. I just take a little scoop of each and put them into an old water bottle. Then I fill the water bottle with hot water and give it a good shake. What I get is this mixture that I can just pour into the jar a little bit at a time. Basically what I do is whenever I see that the water has gone completely clear, I pour in a little bit of the mixture to get the water looking nice and cloudy, and then I wait until it clears up again. Having the bubbler on during feeding time is helpful because it helps to distribute the mixture to the entire jar. Daphnia actually have a very short lifespan of between 10 to 30 days. They actually reproduce by cloning themselves, and they'll produce several clones of themselves every couple of days.
He's not the clone. You are.
This jar is about a month old, and already it's seen generations of Daphnia. And now I think we're finally at the point where we're ready to start harvesting some of the Daphnia to feed to the community tank. If I wait too long to harvest the Daphnia, they could overpopulate the jar that they're in. And if that happens, I'll lose the entire culture. I'll scoop out the excess Daphnia from this jar and feed them to the guppies and tetras in my community tank. To do that, I'll just use a turkey baster and an extra cup. My guppies and tetras have eaten brine shrimp before, but they've never seen Daphnia, so I'm curious to see how they'll react. You can tell this is their first time seeing Daphnia. They barely know what to do with it. Since making this video, my fish have learned to associate the turkey baster with food. Now whenever they see it, they all come swimming to the top of the tank. Here my fish seem a little skeptical to approach it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Feel free to leave a comment if you enjoyed it.